You catch the ball. You got it?
There's no crying. There's no crying in baseball.
Viva Cuba Libre! Welcome in to episode numero dos of the Picked Off Podcast with Mike and Aric. I'm your host, bitter Mike Babbo. Seated to my left is my erstwhile co-host from the great city of San Antonio, one Aric Schuler. How you living this weekend?
What's going on, y'all? I'm feeling pretty good today. We're back.
Yeah. How was your weekend, Aric? How's the debate?
Weekend was good. Weather was awesome. Debate was good. We'll get into this. I was a little sad opening for me on the weekend, Friday night.
You didn't verbally throw down on any 15-year-olds in the debate or anything like that?
No. I was pretty kind. Pretty kind.
All right, good. That's because I know you like to debate. So
yeah, and I give good feedback. You know.
Okay, good. All right, so let's lay the show out real quick. First of all, thank you very much for all of your feedback. We had a lot of fun doing it, but Aric and I have committed to is paring it down a bit. We went a little bit long, but we are going to keep it down to about 30, 45 minutes. Although with this episode, I'm not really sure because there's a couple of subjects that it may get a little spicy, but that's okay. What we're going to do today, we're going to talk about the 2025 Hall of Fame balloting. The votes are in. So far, we know some writers out there are public. Some have kept it private. So we have some inclination as to who is going to get in. We are going to discuss who should be in, and then we'll discuss one guy who definitely is not going to get in and maybe whether he should get in. But next, we're going to talk about the semifinal games in college football playoffs. Certainly one was a very compelling game. The other game left a lot of people out here very frustrated. Then we're going to be getting into the final. We're going to break that one down and see how we feel that one is going to end up. And then if we got some time, we're going to do a rapid fire on the NFL Divisional playoffs. They are in full swing this weekend. Aric, without further ado, the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame ballots are being counted as we speak. The announcement is, I believe, the 21st of January, and that is going to be on a Monday. We have several holdovers from last year. There are some prominent names out there for certain.
Quite a few guys arriving on the ballot this year, Mike.
Yeah, quite a few very prominent ones, right? Certainly Carlos Gonzalez of the Colorado Rockies, Curtis Granderson made his hay with the Detroit Tigers, King Felix Hernandez, Adam Jones from the Baltimore Orioles, and then later in his career with the Arizona Diamondbacks. A couple of guys that are just there simply because they spent more than 10 years playing in the bigs, and they are eligible because they have been retired for 5 years. There are two on my list that, as far as I'm concerned, are locks.
Stone cold lead pipe locks.
Yeah, right, and we'll get into those.
Now, I have a question for you, Mike, before we jump in here. So I want to understand from your perspective. So one thing, I've long had a significant respect for the Baseball Hall of Fame, right? I mean,
me too.
I will tell you, Canton, Springfield, those Hall of Fames do not hold a candle to Cooperstown. Cooperstown, you have to have a pulse to get in at Canton. When it comes to Cooperstown, it is a shrine.
Well, part of the problem with Canton is they have to pick a minimum of 5 and a maximum of 8. So some guys are going to get in there, and you're thinking, really?
Yeah, what a joke! What a
right.
joke! And we've talked about this, over the last 2 or 3 years. I am a staunch supporter of keeping the keys limited to Cooperstown,
and I could not agree with you more.
It should mean a lot to get in there.
There was a year, I remember, it was about 20 years or so, nobody got voted in.
Yeah.
The year Reggie Jackson got voted in, he was the only one. Of course, there's no surprise there, right? He had to have the stage by himself.
Yeah. He needed it.
Yeah.
It required.
Do you know what Catfish Hunter said about him?
I have no idea.
There's not enough mustard in the world to cover that hot dog.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. But he's grown on me, actually.
Oh, sure.
He's been portrayed in TV and in movies as a pretty unbearable guy. But honestly, the last probably 20 years, for me, he's come a long ways. I think he's done a good job of mentoring young players and so kind of changing his demeanor, his personality for me. I have a lot of respect for him.
Yeah. Mark McGuire credited him with making him into a major leaguer his first year, and he protected him too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So,
absolutely.
Looking at the holdovers from previous ballots, the top 3 guys that I wanted to discuss, Billy Wagner, he got a little less than 74% last year, and he is entering his 10th and final year.
He's a
on
lock, right, Mike?
Early projections are he will get in.
Yeah.
Right now, it's looking like 85%.
Is that right?
Yeah. The only thing for me, Aric, and I looked at these stats, to get in the Hall of Fame, you have to be above and beyond your contemporaries. You have to done 1 or 2 things really, really well. Longevity, of course, helps, but also rings. And that's where he falls short with me. And even in the playoffs, his ERA in the playoffs, 10.03. Not great.
Yeah, I mean, I struggle with the closer, all but one, obviously.
Yeah,
but
of course.
No, I struggle with the closer position, not really for any other reason, but I have a lot of respect for these guys who are closers and they sit with one team for a long period of time and they become this mainstay. I struggle a little bit with Wagner. He bounced around, and I do think he's going to get in. I think he's a lock. But going back to that, sitting on the ballot for 10 years, I don't know how I feel about this, Mike, about this kind of slow grind to getting in. At the end of the day, is Billy Wagner a Hall of Famer or not?
Thank you for bringing that up, because I was listening to an interview with J.J. Cooper, who is the editor-in-chief of Baseball America on MLB Network yesterday. This is his first year as a voter for the Hall of Fame. And his justification for marking guys off on the ballot, for those out there not knowing, you get as many as 10 people you can vote for in the Hall of Fame.
Right.
And he voted for Brian McCain. Not because he thought he is a surefire lock as a Hall of Famer, but because he wants to keep him in the conversation. If you do not get 5% of the ballot, you are knocked off forever. You're gone.
Yeah.
Right? So
and you can't get back on.
And
right?
you cannot get back on
even
unless you go to the Veterans
posthumously.
Committee or some other.
Okay. So there are some avenues.
There are some other avenues that they have added over the last few years, which kind of watered down the process for me. Bothered me about it. That's why Harold Baines got in, because there was this committee of like 5 or 6 former ball players and managers, one of which was his manager, Tony La Russa, so I think that was a little bit specious. So he said, look, I just want to keep him in the conversation. I'm with you, Aric. Either he's a Hall of Famer or not.
Yeah, what's frustrating me, we've long talked. Baseball is so old school, which I love, but at the end of the day, these writers, let's go to the GOAT, arguably the GOAT, right, Derek Jeter. What writer doesn't vote for that guy?
Somebody who should get their vote pulled.
Yeah, I agree. And so my only point here is that as this become a formality where we say, hey, we're going to make guys who aren't first ballot Hall of Famers wait.
Yeah.
Is that just going to be the way it is? So that's probably the most frustrating thing to me, is that you got to sit here and wait 10 years, and and odds are you were a Hall of Famer day one.
Yeah.
And they're just doing this old school baseball thing where you have to earn your right to be there. So that's kind of a frustration I have with the Baseball Hall of Fame. But let's get down to it. Who do you think the locks are? Ichiro's in. Right?
Ichiro's in for sure.
He
may be another 100%.
Unanimous?
He may be unanimous.
I think he's got a very good shot.
I'm sure you know who the first and only unanimous choice was.
Of course. I can't believe it at the closer position.
Me neither, Mariano Rivera. It should have been Jeter.
Yeah, 100%. I agree.
The 5 guys who did not vote for him should get their vote pulled.
I can't believe it.
But
honestly.
So I think Ichiro, considering he debuted in 2001, first position player from Japan, he won the Rookie of the Year, Most Valuable Player award in the same season. I'll tell you a little Ichiro story. I attended, along with my good friend Adam Cipriano, the 2007 All-Star Game in San Francisco at Pac-Bell Park. I believe he was the Most Valuable Player award for that game. He hit one in the gap in right center field. I looked at Adam and I said, inside the Parker. By the time the outfielder grabbed the ball at the base of the wall, he was already coasting into home plate. The man had a cannon for an arm. He was an incredible base runner. And he could hit home runs if he wanted to, but that wasn't his game. So he's a lock.
Yeah, he's a lock. I have so much respect for him. The only thing that I struggle with is didn't win.
Right.
But a lot of guys struggle with that. We talked about it. Very little parity here. It's hard for these teams like Seattle and Tampa Bay, and give him credit. He spent a lot of years with Seattle.
Well, they had a huge Japanese contingent over there, and so he had a major following over there, and he was true to his team. And then Seattle had some good years, but they kept on running into the A's or the Astros
Yankees.
or the Yankees.
Yeah, he spent his entire base right there. I mean, I guess early 2000s to 2012 is when he left Seattle.
Right.
The first time before coming back and retiring as a Mariner.
Ichiro in. Okay.
Yeah, in.
Okay.
Absolutely.
CC Sabathia, left-handed pitcher, actually from Vallejo, California.
I love CC, but he's not a Hall of Famer for me.
Really?
Yeah, I love him. He had a couple years there. I don't want to take anything away from CC. I really do like CC as a ball player. It's just, golly, the Hall of Fame really holds a high standard.
He won a ring. He won an AL Cy Young. He finished top 10 4 other times. He's one of 3 left-handers, only 3 left-handers with more than 3,000 strikeouts.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Can you guess the other 2?
I got nothing. What do you got?
Okay. Randy Johnson, big unit. He's number 2 in strikeouts, next to Nolan Ryan. And the other one, I'll give you a hint. His nickname is Lefty. Not much of a hint. Played most of his years with the moribund Philadelphia Phillies.
Who is it?
Steve Carlton.
Steve Carlton.
Yeah, but he's got
3,000 strikeouts.
3,000. He's one of only 3 lefties with more than 3,000 strikeouts. That's a lot to be said for that. He had longevity in his career, got rings. For me, he's in.
So he's in for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the only thing that I struggle with CC Sabathia is a huge guy, right? Struggled to stay in shape his whole career. And the thing is, I think with that type of body, I think he could have been more dominant than he was. I really think he had a frame where he could have been more of a power pitcher than he was. He was never pumping it up there 98, 99 like some of these guys. I'm not going to take a whole lot away from him. For me, he just doesn't. And I think he gets in. There's a difference.
Yeah,
okay?
You think he gets in, but he's not a first. Yeah,
but if I was a sports writer, he's not a Hall of Famer for me.
Okay, you make him wait. Of the other first-timers.
You think Beltran makes the climb this year?
I think so.
You think he's over the
First of all, the early reports are he will make it through. I think enough voters are looking past the trash can era and such. And if you look at his numbers, they're pretty phenomenal. A career WAR of over 70. He's got the longevity, 20 years in the game.
Yeah, my only concern around 20 years in the game is 20 years a long time to play. I feel like a player of his stature, and look, he's a Hall of Famer. He's going to get in. I don't have any problem with that. My only knock on Beltran, we can talk about 2017 at a different point in time.
Right.
My only knock on Beltran is he played a long time, and I feel like he should have a few more hits than he has.
He's got 435 home runs.
He does. He does. But, the magic mark for the Hall of Fame is 500.
Right. 500 or 3,000
if you want to be a home run hitter going into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Right, and honestly, from an all-around perspective, I mean, over 2,700 hits, just north of 400. How was he? A 435 home run?
435. Right?
Yeah. And so for me, those two numbers by themselves stand alone. He's in.
Yeah,
he is, and he's deserving.
I think he makes it for certain. I think the other holdover that makes it, and this is a guy that I watch because his team, even though they're in the Eastern time zone, they were in the NL West for the longest time. Andrew Jones.
You think he makes it this year?
I think so. If not, this is his 8th year, and he should. He had 61.6% of the vote last year. Let me tell you something. As a Giants fan, I watched him for the entirety of his career. When he broke in 1996. As like a 20-year-old. If you hit a ball to center field against the Atlanta Braves, you better hit it over the park. It should be over the fence. Because
he had some range, didn't he?
He had and one of the things that there was a knock on him was, he doesn't hustle, he doesn't try. Neither did Joe DiMaggio. That's because he had such a great jump on the ball. He could just glide.
Yeah, he ran like a gazelle.
Yeah,
right.
He did.
Yeah.
So I think Andrew Jones is in. I think there's some talk maybe about Adam Jones getting in with his longevity and his numbers. What about
you think Adam Jones gets in first time?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, I think he's going to be in the conversation, but I don't think he gets in as a first ballot. No.
Yeah, so for me, just looking at the list, there's 28 guys on the list this year.
Yeah.
Okay. 14 of those guys, or just over half, I think, are first timers.
Yeah.
And so right now, I think we've already talked about the guys who I think are locks. I think Billy gets in, Andrew gets in, Carlos Beltran gets in, Ishiro's a lock, first time on the ballot. And after looking at the rest of the list, I think the rest of these guys are going to kick it around for a while. King Felix, what are your thoughts there? Just my only concern, he would have had gaudy numbers. The longevity is just not there.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at the numbers at first, and certainly when he was at the top of his game, there was nobody better. He did finish 10th in the AL Most Valuable Player award, and for a pitcher, that's saying something.
That's a big deal.
Six-time All-Star.
One Cy Young.
He did win it in 2010. He finished second the year before and in 2014. Top 10, 3 additional seasons. There was
a perfect game. Perfect games are a big deal.
Perfect game is a big deal. Not too many of those. I think only 28 in the history of the game.
Yeah, and that can't be the only reason. But he's got
23rd.
Yeah, he's got some other accolades. I think.
Yeah, for certain. But he broke down in 2018, 2019, opted out because of COVID, and then he signed a 1-year deal with Atlanta, never hooked up with them, and that was it. He just quietly rode off into the sunset. So we just don't talk about him enough because of the way he exited the game.
But you know what I think plagues him too? I think it plagues these guys who have borderline numbers, right, borderline longevity, and they play for mediocre teams. I think that's what plagues them is there are just flashes in the pan. Nobody really talked about Seattle during those years he was there, and so I think that's kind of something that doesn't help these guys when they go to Cooperstown.
Right. Essentially, he played technically 15 seasons, but let's call it like really 10.
Yeah, 10.
And he had 2,500 strikeouts in his career, so that's pretty darn good, too.
Yeah, it's nothing to sneeze at, is it?
No, it's not. We know of those guys that are eligible. We know, we told you of who we think is going to get in, certainly this year or probably possible years. We know one guy who definitely is not going to get in because he's not eligible. We both saw the special, Charlie Hustle.
Oh, if you guys
in the matter of Pete Rose,
if the audience has not seen the 4-part documentary done by HBO on Charlie Hustle, Pete Rose, the Pete Rose story, you need to go watch it.
Yeah, go get educated, especially if you're a baseball fan, because it is very compelling.
And you know what I enjoyed about it, Mike, is I had a preconceived opinion on Pete Rose going in to watch it, and I came out with the same opinion.
Yes,
and I think that's generally would be the consensus of this documentary. Is it did not change your mind. And it presented both sides of the equation. It really did. I mean, it presented him, and we're going to talk. I hope we talk extensively about this,
of course,
because he is probably the most controversial figure in baseball over the last 40 years.
Maybe Barry Bonds, maybe Roger Clemens. I said maybe, but certainly Pete elicits strong opinions on both sides of the issue.
Yeah, and we're on opposite sides of the issue here.
Yeah, we are.
Right? Mike and I enjoy going back and forth on Pete Rose. And it's really, for me, it comes down to I like a guy like Pete Rose. The thing is, I really do think he's being held out because there's this moral police situation going on. If Pete Rose would have come out and said, I gambled on baseball in the late 80s, he would be in the Hall of Fame right now. And so the issue that the reason why he's struggling to get reinstated or won't get reinstated is because he lied, and he built on those lies. And now what has ended up happening is the public, or anyone else for that matter, cannot trust the guy. They cannot trust what comes out of his mouth. And he spent 15, 20 years denying. 15, yeah. And then he finally comes out and says that I did it, but always gets caught in these odd spots where he gets caught really not telling the truth.
But the reason why he finally admitted it is because he was given the advice to admit it, and that would loosen up the attitudes a bit and probably soften up some people. And of course, it did not work. It's like, well, why did you lie for so long? And the other thing, too, is Pete is his own worst enemy. He's not the nicest human being in the world. He's not the most upstanding human being in the world.
Yeah, and I don't know about nicest. I don't know if that's the word I would use. I would tell you he's probably not the best human being in the world.
Okay.
I actually think he's a pretty kind-hearted guy. In my kind of assessment, I would just tell you he's a seedy guy. He gets caught with bad guys, and I don't think that is necessarily about how nice you are. I really think it's just about you got to look at how he grew up. It was a different situation.
Well, he grew up, in a hard-nosed, blue-collar atmosphere. His dad went to work and just didn't complain. And it's like, look, you work 6 days a week. You work your tail off. There was one time where he was playing, I think could have been minor leagues or maybe it was in the pros, and he didn't hustle down first base. And his dad said, don't you ever embarrass me again.
Don't you ever embarrass me like that again.
Yeah, because he was born in Cincinnati. He grew up in Cincinnati. It's a hard-scrabble town. He is Cincinnati. And you won't find anybody who doesn't love Pete Rose out there in the Queen City.
Yeah, he is. He's worshipped there.
Right.
But
outside, it's a different story.
Yeah, it really is. But here's where I think a lot of people, Pete Rose was never the most talented guy on the field.
No.
And he was raised in an environment where he's a grinder. Right? He figures out a way to make it work. And if you think about his personal life, right, whether he had a gambling problem, which he did, everybody knows that, it's well documented, is he grounded out. He figured out a way to pay his bills and to do all these different things, and that's what kind of led him down some of these seedy paths. I urge you all to watch the documentary. I'm another shameless plug here.
The problem I have with Pete Rose is not only did he lie, but he violated the most sacred tenet of baseball that almost took the game down. And we're talking about the 1919 Black Sox scandal when the 8 Chicago White Sox threw, and by that time, it was a 9-game series against the Cincinnati Reds. They did that to promote baseball in the aftermath of World War I. Charles Comiskey was one of the cheapest skinflints around. The players wanted to get back at him, and gambling was a part of the game as it was. But these 8 players conspired to throw the World Series, and they were paid by, along with Arnold Rothstein and a couple of other gamblers. And in comes Kennesaw Mountain Landis as a new commissioner, and he permanently banned them from baseball. Not since then, and that's the only time. Look, baseball has lots of problems with. Well, it did. I mean, cocaine problem in the late 70s with the Pittsburgh Pirates, the steroid problem in the late 90s. And then, of course, the sign stealing just several years ago. They continue to shoot themselves in the foot because they never get out ahead of something like this. This was something that they had to get out ahead of. And even as far back as 1985, Peter Ubroth and their lawyers brought Pete in and his lawyer and said, look, dude, we understand you're consorting with gamblers. They're telling us that you owe them as much as $500,000, and these are nasty characters. Pete, we got you dead to rights. We will help you. And he lied through his teeth. I don't have a problem. I don't know what you're talking about. Time and time again. And Peter Ubroth was a guy who did not like controversy. That's why he settled the umpire strike back in 1984. And he gave them all sorts of power, which I hate him for, because now you can't get rid of bad umpires.
Yep.
And so he just said, look, I just want this not swept under the rug, but I want this taken care of. And he just continued to deny it. There is a rule. Rule 21. The title is misconduct. And subsection 1, parts A and B flat out say, if you bet, and it's mounted on every clubhouse in major leagues and the minor league clubhouses. If you bet on baseball, you are suspended for 1 year. If you bet on your team, you are suspended for life. Pete knew, I get it, he's got a problem. If you want to bet on the track, if you want to bet on pro football or college basketball, okay, that's fine. You can terribly, as I say, you can beat your wife, you could cheat on your wife, you could do drugs like Steve Howe and get suspended 4 times. You could do all those terrible things like Dave Parker. He was a cocaine addict. I mean, it's well chronicled. But if you do these 2 things, you're done. That's it. You could do anything else you want. And he did it, and he flaunted it.
Mike, I'll take nothing away from that point. I agree with that. But I will go back to my point. That is not why he is not in the Hall of Fame.
Why is he not in the Hall of Fame?
Because he
lied?
in the Hall of Fame because he dug his heels in, and he lied for 15 years. He lied for 15 years, deny. And the thing is, they can't get over it because they can't trust anything that he says. Even when he sits there and gets interviewed, he gets caught in these small little nuances of just not telling the truth. He's a chronic liar. Yeah. And I believe, and go back to your point, he got approached. They said, hey, we've seen it. We know you're doing this. We'll help you, right? And they would have helped him, and he would be in the Hall. That's what. That's the thing. Is that I believe wholeheartedly if he would have come clean immediately and he would have come out in 87, 88, whatever years those were, and said, hey, I have this problem. I did some things that were not good for the game. They would have banned him. They would have reinstated him, and he would be in the Hall. But he dug in. He's a chronic liar. It's a moral police deal. He's not getting in. I don't see it happening.
No.
But he should be in.
I don't think he should be in. And even if he had come out and admitted it, he still violated the rule itself. If he had come in kind of like what our company has, If I got a drinking problem, I got a drug problem, and I go to HR and say, you know what, I got to drink, I drink a fifth of vodka every night, smoke some Hooters and stuff like that. If I volunteer that information, they will cut me some slack, get me treatment, come back, whatever. If I fail a drug test,
Toast.
You're toast.
Toast.
I'm toast.
Yep.
In this case, they gave Pete the out. I don't think they should have given him the out. I mean, it's like, dude, you know what the consequences are.
And I understand. I understand, Mike. I understand your stance of, hey, this is very cut and dry. I can get behind that stance. I can understand that stance. If the stance is, hey, you gamble in baseball, you're out for life, there is nothing else to talk about here.
I see your point. You're saying that he's being held out for the wrong reasons.
That's right. That's
okay.
right.
All right.
He is being held out because because of the type of person that he has proven himself to be, and not because he gambled on baseball.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are in common ground here. I thought stuff would be flying across the room here. Okay.
Turns out great minds think alike.
Yeah, that's all right. R.I.P. to Pete. The special was aired in July of last year. He died 2 months later of congestive heart failure in his new hometown of Las Vegas. How ironic is that? And it is a sad thing. I mean, most games played, most runs scored, obviously most hits, 3-time World Series champion, 2 with the Reds with the big red machine, and then 1 when he went to Philly, and that was their only until 2009, I believe, or 2008. But that was their first and only World Series championship in a baseball-mad Philadelphia. So, yeah, I mean, he deserves a statue. He deserves a hall. He deserves a plaque in Cooperstown. There's no question about it. But except for that one transgression.
Oh, yeah.
And it's an absolute sad thing.
And there's only one way that he gets in, and I don't see it happening, right? So even Manfred came out and said, hey, this is not a MLB issue. This is not a baseball issue. This is a Cooperstown, New York Hall of Fame issue.
Right. They punted.
Yeah, and I disagree with that.
It's cowardly.
Right? The reason that he hasn't gotten into the Hall is because the Hall has a rule that states if you are on the ineligible list, you are not eligible for the Hall of Fame.
So basically, Major League Baseball and the Hall of Fame, which are 2 distinct organizations,
right,
are pointing the finger at each other.
Correct.
Which is this is what baseball. This is the problem I have with baseball.
And so I don't see him getting in because I don't think that's going to change. Now I would tell you if that did change and now it's posthumous, it goes to a veterans committee for him to get in the Hall. It's no longer up to the writers. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, he would get in.
But he has to be eligible
correct,
first, right?
He has to be reinstated in baseball.
Yeah.
In order for that to happen. And so posthumously, he would get in if he got off that list. But
posthumously.
Yeah, but okay.
Wordsmith.
Yeah, wordsmithing here.
All right. Turning on now to the salary arbitration. We should have talked about that. Arbitration figures were submitted by the January 9th deadline. There were 17 guys that submitted figures. Some of these guys that agreed to contracts in advance of that. The biggest one, Vladimir Guerrero with the Toronto Blue Jays, $28 million.
It's a lot of cocoa.
Dollars. That's, yeah, exactly. Let me see. Right off the top of my head, Mike Yastrzemski settled for $9.5 million.
Lower than I would have thought.
He hit like 240.
I understand.
I
understand.
mean, but he didn't have that great of a year.
But a lot of these guys, you're paying for, lightning in a
that
bottle.
Is still, you're correct, and that is still under the qualifying offer. Tarek Skubal, I believe he signed for over $10 million.
I didn't see that one.
AL Cy Young Award winner. The biggest gap in arbitration figures is the guy we talked about last week, Kyle Tucker. He submitted a figure for $17.5 million. The Cubs have countered with 15.
Which is interesting because I would have gone with a higher number if I would have been him.
Considering his numbers and how he has gotten better every year, absolutely.
Yeah, I would have been north of 20.
I mean, the qualifying offer tells me this is what a starting Major League, not a bench guy, but a starting Major League Baseball player is worth.
Everyday player.
Everyday player.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
And that's right now that figure is $21.05 million.
Yep.
So he might be underselling himself a bit.
I mean, I'd love it if he played for my team.
Yeah. He's a stud.
Yeah, he's a stud.
Turning on to other sports, the college football playoff, the semifinal games, the first
heartbreaker for me last Friday night.
I'm so sorry, but you know what? This is what we talked about. Well, this is what Texas does.
You
right?
said it. You said it. You called it. You nailed it. You said this is who they are. It's what they do. Very disappointed. And for those of you out there who didn't watch the game, the game for me was I thought Ohio State controlled the game. Now, the score did not appear like that throughout the game.
No.
But there was one big personal conduct call in the first quarter that I think really changed the momentum right? Ohio State was driving.
Oh, yeah,
at
Trayvon
will.
Henderson.
Yeah, Trayvon Henderson.
He peeled off like a 28-yard run, and then he got called for unsportsmanlike conduct.
He hit some defensive lineman in the face or something, and they call personal foul, and that basically set the tone for how Ohio State played.
They kept on shooting themselves in the foot. I mean, Ohio State's offense in the middle part of that game was absolutely sluggish.
Absolutely. And credit Texas defense. They got one of the best defenses in the country. And my thing is, and I love this out of Sark. Everybody here knows I'm a huge UT fan, huge Longhorn fan.
Yep.
So I'm, constantly engaged, listening to the press conferences. And what I loved about Sark is Sark came out. He was very clear about how tough it would be for his team to beat Ohio State. And he said, look, what is the strategy here? The strategy is keep this thing close, get into the fourth quarter, make enough plays to win the game.
Right, and not make mistakes.
That's right, and they did not do that.
No, they did not.
But they executed up to that point. I thought at some point, Ohio State might be able to pull away. They didn't. They didn't pull away. Texas was in the game. They get to the fourth quarter. The game is tied. It just happens to be Texas.
They were getting chunk plays in that last drive. I mean, and they had
first and goal from the 1.
And this is the problem I have, Aric, is like your first and goal at the 1. It was first and goal at the 2 before a defensive pass interference, so it was half the distance to the goal line. First and goal on the 1. You're lined up in the pistol?
Yeah. I'm embarrassed.
Quinn Ewers is 6'2", 210 pounds. Get your butt under center and push the pile.
As we speak, throwing up in my mouth right now. I'm sick about it.
And then, of course, the other inexcusable play after Texas drives down the length of the field, scores a game-tying touchdown with 30 seconds left in the first half.
34 seconds. I think 34, yeah.
Trayvon Henderson catches a screen pass and romps 75 yards
for the
because they peeled their linebackers back. What in the heck are you doing? That's inexcusable. Cannot let that
coaching.
happen.
That's coaching.
Right.
And so Texas got a lot of work to do. I said it. Texas was going to have to run for more than 150 yards.
Right.
They failed to do that.
Yeah, it was like 58 yards.
Yeah, they did give up less than 5 sacks. But at the end of the day, they couldn't run the football, and their defense really held them in there. Really surprised that Texas did not get put away in that game sooner than it happened. But they had a chance going in the fourth quarter. They failed. So now we're talking, right?
OSU, we'll leave it at this. Ohio State did not play as nearly of a complete game as they did against Oregon. And so they gave UT a chance, but you put the ball in Quinn Ewers' hands because the running game, like you mentioned, wasn't good enough.
Non-existent.
You know what? That kid's got to have an internal clock. He's going to move on down the road. The rumors are he's got $6.5 million sitting on the table.
Well, he just declared for the NFL draft today.
Okay, yeah. All right. You know more than I do. Okay, good for him because I don't think he was going to stick around with Texas because it's Arch Manning's team now.
Well, here's one thing, and we'll get off this. One thing I don't know about Quinn Ewers is I have not been a Quinn Ewers hater. A lot of my friends who are big fans of the Longhorns, my family who's huge fans of the Longhorns, they have been on Quinn Ewers all year long, and that hasn't really been my shtick. I've put a lot of onus on the offensive line, their struggles. I really do think when he struggles to step up into the pocket, there is no pocket for him to step up into.
There's no pocket presence. That's the problem.
Yeah, so I've struggled to I haven't been as negative as Quinn Ewers, and this is what's odd, is we're all watching the same Quinn Ewers. But the football community, whether it be the college coaches, whether it be the college scouts, the NFL, they are seeing something we're not seeing because he is highly touted.
Yeah, he's got some moxie to him, for sure.
And I'll tell you, I think that's why he decided to declare for the NFL draft today.
Yeah.
Is because there's something the NFL scouts and management sees in him, whether it be his size, whether it be his arm, which I haven't seen these things.
Right.
I'm not saying that I've seen these things and think he's got great any of this, but something is there that looks good to people.
2 reasons, I think, and we'll get off this. Number 1, I don't think this quarterback class is as strong as everyone thinks. You got Cam Ward, you got Shadir Sanders, who didn't really look good in the Alamo Bowl against Colorado. Excuse me, BYU. Dylan Gabriel looked terrible against Ohio State. And the other thing too is that there's a lot of NFL teams out there that are hungry for quarterbacks.
Yeah,
they are quarterback needy. I can think of 6 right off the top of my head, including my own Las Vegas Raiders.
Yeah. Well, here's my take. He's going to go to the Pittsburgh Steelers.
They need one, too.
They do.
For certain.
They do.
Okay, switching to the
Moving
other.
on, yeah.
Yeah, switching on to the CFP semifinal game. Notre Dame at Penn State. Penn State was dominant for the first half. Riley Leonard goes down suffers a head injury. I got some unsung heroes that I need to tout.
Yeah,
I need to give a shout-out to some unsung heroes. First of all, their quarterback, Steve Angeli, the backup quarterback, Steve Angeli, he steadied the ship in the middle of that last drive, went 6 for 7, no picks. I think he suffered 1 sack, but in that final drive in the first half, and he led that team to a 41-yard Mitch Jeter field goal, which gave Notre Dame some hope because they were doing nothing on the ground. They had 15 yards of rushing in the first half. Secondly, the reason why they were not doing well in the first half is because they lost 2 offensive linemen. The guard, Rocco Spindler, their left tackle, Anthony Knapp, both went down with injuries. And then they bring up 2 backups. One guy who had 60 career snaps. The other guy hadn't had any. And so they steadied the ship.
Big takeaway, Knapp's out for the national championship.
Yeah,
too,
he
right?
is. And Spindler's going to try and give it a go, but we'll see. So Charles Segusa and Tosh Baker are going to get some work for sure. Those are the backups who came in. But all of a sudden, they started running the ball really well. They only had 56 yards total. But, I mean, they got the running game going when it counted.
Love's a stud, too. Heart of line.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Christian Gray, the linebacker who made the critical interception. What was I telling you about? They needed to create turnovers, right? They waited until the last 30 seconds to force their only turnover of that game. Christian Gray with a diving interception. But really, my guy who caused it was the linebacker Jalen Sneed on the blitz. He forced Drew Aller into throwing that pass. He wanted to throw it into the ground. Because he hit his arm, the trajectory of that pass went a little bit higher, allowing Gray to catch that pass. It was huge because Notre Dame just essentially ran out the clock out in field goal position and had the last-second field goal.
Yeah, it was over at that point. Yeah.
My last one was Jeremiah Love. Playing on that bum MCL in his right knee, that 2-yard run to tie the game in the fourth quarter was a thing of beauty.
And I'll tell you, this is I'm jumping ahead a little bit.
Yeah.
But my only a large takeaway that I had out of the Penn State Notre Dame game is those 2 teams for me looked like they wanted it more than Ohio State and Texas. Yeah. Now, I think Ohio State and Texas far away more talented.
You mean Penn State and Texas?
No. I'm talking about the other.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Right, and so that is the only thing that I think gives them a shot in this national title. Is I think those 2 teams, Penn State, Notre Dame, looked hungrier to me.
Yeah,
they had guys running harder. They had guys that looked like they wanted it. And I'm going to tell you, I am really down on James Franklin coming out of the game.
Oh, he's an idiot.
You know, I think he botched it. I think he went away from what I thought was giving Notre Dame trouble. The meat for Penn State was really wreaking havoc on Notre Dame, and he was having massive success running outside the tackles. They could not handle that size, and I think he went away from that a little bit. And for me, that was kind of the nail in the coffin. Plus the quarterback making a pretty terrible.
Well, not just that. I mean, he gave the Fighting Irish a lot of fuel. I mean, in the pregame, he was complimenting, and I'm using air quotes, Marcus Freeman, the head coach of Notre Dame, on his youth. But basically, he was calling him inexperienced. He was, he was complimenting him on his hairline. It's basically just insulting the man.
Which he has no business doing.
He's
won nothing.
Right.
He's won nothing.
No.
James Franklin needs to a gut check for him. I love the great state. I love Penn State. They're a legacy institution, blue blood program. I want to like them. Mm-hmm. But James Franklin makes it really hard for me.
No, he does. And and he was also questioning Notre Dame and how they need to go to a conference, and they didn't really earn it. Listen, pal, they went undefeated against the Big Ten and the ACC, and oh, by the way, they defeated the previous national championship. Okay, yeah, they didn't have Carson Beck, their quarterback, but you know what? Their backup, he wasn't a babe in the woods. He had some experience too. So this national championship game sets up. It's Monday, January the 20th, 6:30 p.m.,
Line's 9.5.
It opened up at 9.5. Now it's down to 8.
Okay, so the smart money's coming in on Notre Dame.
Exactly.
So
that's on ESPN.
This is a pretty hot take here. I think Ohio State is hands down the most talented team in this final.
Yeah.
But I like Notre Dame to cover, but I like Ohio State to win.
Yeah, I mean, I think this could be close, but if Riley Leonard continues to throw interceptions, that could.
I'm surprised his interceptions didn't hurt him in the semifinal.
The second one almost did.
I said coming out of our show last week, I said, hey, if Riley Leonard does not turn the ball over, Notre Dame will win this football game. And he turned the ball over twice, and they lost the turnover battle in that game, but they had the most timely turnover.
Losing 2 starting offensive linemen, you've got a running back on a bum knee, you've got the most inexperienced wide receiver core in college football. Notre Dame's going to have to win this game on their defense.
Yeah, the question is Ohio State thinking they already won it?
Oh, no. Ryan Day has already got them thinking that, everybody wants me out, and he's been working on that for the last month. So
narrative,
I think Ohio State wins, but I don't think they cover. This is going to be a wonderful, wonderful game. Before we get you out of here, NFL wildcard round, a bunch of sloppy games, a bunch of games that pretty much the way we thought, except for the nail biter, Washington.
Give it up for Washington Commanders.
I'm telling you, Jaden Daniels.
He's
been doing it all his entire
they found
career.
Him a quarterback, and I'll tell you, I go back to my college football comments. The NFL is better when teams like the Washington Commanders are good.
Yeah, sure.
When they're winning football games and making playoff runs.
And they got their franchise quarterback, and they're just loving it. All they need is just a real running back. If they get a J.T. Dobbins or
if they can get a bell cow,
yeah,
they can,
exactly.
they can make a lot
we're
of
gonna
headway.
We're going to rip through these. I'm going to ask you what you're thinking on these divisional round games in order of broadcast. All these times that I'm going to post are East Coast time. So
And you're going to give me the line?
Absolutely.
All right.
Houston travels to Kansas City. They play the defending champion Chiefs. Kansas City's an 8.5-point favorite. The over-under is on 41.5. This game is at 4:30 p.m. on ESPN and ABC. Patrick Mahomes, give you one stat. Patrick Mahomes is 6-0 in the divisional round in his career. Cornerback Jalen Watson, one of their studs, practiced yesterday. He's set to return to this game, and that could shore up their secondary. They got a great front line, but not so much the secondary, but this could help.
Yeah,
what are you looking at?
I'm sorry. Kansas City they're winners. Their coach is a winner. Their quarterback is a winner. For the great Houston Texans, I think the luck runs out this week. I think their season's over, but I do think they cover. I think that's a large line for the NFL. And so I think Houston does cover, but I think Kansas City wins this, and I don't think it will never appear close.
Both
the score will be closer in the game.
Yeah, both offenses are challenged. Both defenses are good, but I think Kansas City's defense is better, and they still got fitting, what we call football Jesus, and he's going to make the difference. I think Kansas City covers this 8.5.
Okay, I like that,
and especially because it's at home. Washington, the Commanders travel to the Motor City and face the number one seeded Detroit Lions. Detroit is a 9.5-point favorite. The over-under is 55.5. That game is Saturday, 8 p.m. Eastern on Fox. Detroit, under Dan Campbell, they lost 19 of their first 24 games, and now they sit as the number one seed. He's got them eating out of his hat.
He is a stud. He is an absolute stud. He is my favorite coach in the league. Super passionate, cares about his players, cares about the culture he's trying to get going there. I like the Lions in this game. Won't pull any punches there. I will tell you the only thing that Detroit needs to do in order to shore up and take that next step is they have to get somebody to shadow Campbell. He has a tendency to make some poor decisions, some emotional decisions, and I like that. Sometimes I like that. But you have to have a guy that's sitting there that says, hey, we want to do this?
Yeah.
Are we sure we want to go down this path? You got to get somebody to shadow him.
But I think that's what makes his players play for him.
I think so. It's just, but that's the next step. You can't do everything on emotion. You can't. The guys who win are perennial winners. Bill Belichick, Andy Reid, those guys are calm, cool, collected. And those guys are perennial winners.
Eventually that emotion may run its course and get a little bit old. But right now, let's enjoy it.
Yeah,
the Lions fans are passionate. They've been starved
and
for
look,
this.
I love Campbell. I won't take anything away from him. I just think in order to take that next step and have it not be – because emotional things can go both directions.
Yeah.
You know, you can have one that really inspires the team and gets the fans fired up, and you can make a blunder. Right. And it can turn the momentum in a game that you really shouldn't have any business being close.
The Lions lost David Montgomery for the rest of the season, one of their two-headed running backs, but Jahmyr Gibbs is really second-year guy. He's really stepped up, and he has been an absolute monster. I like Detroit in this game as well. I don't think that they cover because sometimes their offense starts a little bit sluggish. I really wish I'm hoping to see Chad Hutchinson come back sometime during the playoffs.
Wouldn't it be awesome?
They had something like 26 guys in defense on injured reserve. It's just a stupid figure.
Yeah.
Turning to Sunday's games, the Rams, after the mild upset against the Vikings, it was played in Phoenix. They traveled to Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love, and face the 14-3 Eagles. The Eagles are a 5.5-point favorite. The over-under there is 43.5. That game airs at 3 p.m. on the NBC network. Only twice in their 91 years of existence have the Eagles won 14 games in playing tackle football, both times under their current head coach, Nick Sirianni. What are you looking at?
It's interesting. I didn't know that. I haven't been a huge fan of his all year. I mean,
he's outspoken.
I mean, don't get me wrong.
He gets in arguments with fans.
Do I like them Billy Club and the Cowboys? Absolutely. Okay. But as far as head coach, he's been unimpressive, but he's rallied the troops here late. I think he's got the Eagles playing good football. I think they cover the 5.5. I think the Rams season. I really think they caught lightning in a bottle last week. I'm disappointed for the Minnesota fans. I'm disappointed for Minnesota.
I'm not. I hate them.
You know, they're always trying.
I can't stand them.
Right.
Hate them.
But they're gone, so that's good for you.
I never want to be on this earth. I do not want to be on this earth and watch them hoist the trophy.
No worries this year.
No.
So yeah, I like the Eagles here. I think the Eagles are the best team in the NFC. I see them taking care of business here and covering the 5.5.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a double-digit blowout for the Eagles. I mean, I think their defense is second to none. Last game of the weekend in the NFC, or excuse me, in the AFC, and it's the big one. Baltimore, with probably the MVP of the league, travels to Buffalo. Baltimore is a 1-point favorite on the road. And the over-under is 51.5. This game will be aired on CBS at 6:30 p.m. Baltimore's offense was tops in yards per play at 6.2, second in passing TDs with, I believe, 41, and third in total points scored. How do you see this one playing out, Eric?
So this is one of those, you hear this stuff debated all the time. Which team has the more pressure? And I think Buffalo has got to be feeling the pressure. I mean, they've been knocking on the door of being a really good football team for a number of years now. I think they're kind of squandering the heyday of Josh Allen. And I hate to say this, but I like Baltimore here. I like Baltimore to go on the road. I like Baltimore to cover. I just think Baltimore's going to outclass them. I think Baltimore's got a better coach. Buffalo can't get out of their own way. I do think Buffalo's probably the better team. Mm-hmm. But I think Buffalo cannot rise to the occasion when they need to. So I like Lamar. I like the Ravens. I think they got over that hump with that first playoff win. They looked good. And so I like those guys to go on the road and get a W here.
I just don't see anyone stopping Derrick Henry. I mean, he could run for 150 yards and 2 tutties. Yeah. Really. The only concern I have is Lamar Jackson ran the ball a lot.
He does run the ball a lot,
and he's going to take some punishment for sure.
Yeah, the only way they're going to be successful is if he does.
Yeah, that's true. But I agree with you. I think Baltimore wins this. I think they do cover. I just don't see Buffalo's defense stopping King Henry. So. Anyway, that'll do it for this episode of Picked Off with Mike and Eric. Next week, Eric and I will do a postmortem on the College Football National Championship. We'll give our way too early predictions for the 2025 season for college football. We'll discuss NFL Divisional playoff round and championship rounds, I guess, for the various conferences, respective conferences. And then we'll give our take on the 2025 Hall of Fame balloting results. The inductees will be announced Tuesday, January the 21st. Eric, what do you got going on this weekend?
This weekend, you know what? I got school. I'm heading up to UT.
There you go.
My last semester. I graduate in May, and
congratulations.
I just need to knock it out. I'm ready for it to be over.
You are not going to know what you're going to do all the time.
Yeah, I really don't.
Although with 5 kids, I can think.
I really don't. But little tidbit here. We are getting close. We're getting close. I can feel it. We got pitchers and catchers coming in.
Oh yeah.
I'm ready.
Third week in February. I was going to go play golf, but it's going to be way too darn cold. And our club has Men's Golf Association 2-day tournament, so they're taking up both. So maybe I'll just work on my swing. But anyway, that'll do it. We want to thank all of you for listening in. A big shout out to Freddie D of 105.3 The Fan in Dallas for all of his production help. You can catch us every week on Apple, Spotify, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also follow us on X at @TheBitterMike or on Instagram, BitterMike1963. Time is precious, so we appreciate you in spending some of yours with us, talking the great game of baseball. Have a great weekend, everyone. See ya!